Muireann.
Fancy seeing you. Good morning and welcome to Ireland AM. It is Thursday, the 4th of August.
We've only just arrived in the door.
That was it. We just start straight away.
Welcome to your Thursday. On the way, we've got 70s pop stars, skincare saviours and spyware in the Home Office.
First up, having a priest in every parish could soon be a thing of the past, as clergy shortages mean there aren't enough priests to go around anymore.
There should be a priest in every home.
Priest in every home. That's a bit much.
As ubiquitous as dishwashers.
That was that was a while ago. I don't have a dishwasher.
Need more priests then.
We'll be discussing the future of the Catholic Church at 7:35. 0896 111 to get in contact. We'd love to hear your views.
Caroline Hirons has turned the beauty industry on its head. The no-nonsense skincare expert will be chatting with us after 8 o'clock this morning.
She's fantastic. Plus 70s pop star and Grammy winner Leo Sayer celebrates 50 years in show business and tells us about rubbing shoulders with everyone from the Beatles to Muhammad Ali. He's right there. I was like, what's over my shoulder?
I think we chatted to him on the 6 o'clock show a while back, and he's great, a lovely man. That's coming up a little bit later on. And joining us back at base again, it's great to have him back. Alan Hughes is here, everyone.
Woo!
Good morning. Yes, now listen to this. Could your boss be spying on you? We're going to be finding out about Bossware, the sneaky surveillance tech some employers are using to spy on remote workers. Our TikTok solicitor Richard Grogan tells us your rights, and he'll be taking your questions, so do get them into us. Now, Derek, it's a lovely morning out there. What part of Ireland are you in this morning? Is it going to stay sunny all day?
Al, I'll tell you, we're live here in Blanchardstown in West Dublin. Lovely job on the fly yesterday in County Westmeath as well. It's a dry and settled start. A couple of showers there, Al, through the northwest this morning. But guess what, guys? It's sunglasses weather out there today because we've some really nice rays extending right up and down the island. About time.
Glasses, that's what you're showing us. They're lovely glasses. I like those now. It's time to go over to the Virgin Media News Hub for the first time today and say hello to Anne O'Donnell.
Thanks, Muireann. Good morning. Well, China has launched major military drills in the waters and skies surrounding the island of Taiwan this morning. Exercises, which include live fire drills, follow a brief but controversial visit to the island by the US House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. The trip sparked fury in Beijing after she ignored its warnings not to travel to the island. In response, China has moved to stop certain important exports and kicked off the exercises to include live fire drills. Well, Taiwan is calling it a blockade that endangers regional security and has rerouted vessels to avoid the drills. Last night, the White House said it was monitoring the situation and also defended Pelosi's trip to Taiwan.
There's no reason for Beijing to turn this visit, which is consistent with our policy, into some sort of crisis. We knew this was going to happen. We knew China was going to behave in this way. Again, it doesn't change our policy. We are going to monitor and we will manage what Beijing chooses to do.
The US President Joe Biden has signed another executive order to help ensure abortion access in light of the Supreme Court eliminating the constitutional right to abortion in the US. Well, Joe Biden has said, who is still recovering from COVID-delivered remarks, virtually saying the order will help women travel out of state to receive medical care and ensure healthcare providers comply with federal law so women aren't delayed in getting treatment.
I believe Roe got it right. It's been the law for close to 50 years. And I commit to the American people that we're doing everything in our power to safeguard access to health care, including the right to choose that women had under Roe v. Wade, which was ripped away by this extreme court. But ultimately, Congress must codify the protections of Roe as federal law. And if Congress fails to act, the people of this country need to elect senators and representatives who will restore Roe and will protect the right to privacy, freedom, and equality.
Staying in the US now, where thousands of people have been left without access to clean water and and electricity after supplies were damaged in eastern Kentucky following historic flooding. Communities struggling to recover are now facing another challenge where scorching heat has replaced the rain there.
Students are now helping to get critical food and drinking water supplies to parts of eastern Kentucky. A state of emergency has been declared there after the flash floods destroyed towns and properties almost a week ago. The water is receding very slowly, hampering the recovery effort. Dozens of people have already been confirmed dead. Hundreds more are still unaccounted for, according to the state governor, Andy Bashir. Huge parts of the critical infrastructure have been severely damaged, so the recovery operation is extremely difficult. Approximately 1,300 people have been rescued, and crews are still trying to reach some who've been cut off by the floods and subsequent mudslides. More than 12,000 households have no electricity, and thousands of properties have been washed away. As well as the flood damage, now sweltering heat is becoming a problem. Cooling stations are being set up in buildings that were spared from the floods. Marie Mulcahy, Virgin Media News.
Antonio Guterres, United Nations Secretary-General, is urging countries to tax gas company profits and use the money to help poor people. Guterres was speaking during the release of a report on the global impact of the war in Ukraine. He's advising countries to conserve energy and invest in renewable fuel sources.
It is immoral for oil and gas companies to be making record profits from this energy crisis on the back of the poorest people and communities, and at a massive cost to the climate. The combined profits of the largest energy companies in the first quarter of this year are close to $100 billion. I urge all governments to tax these excessive profits and use the funds to support the most vulnerable people through these difficult times. And I urge people everywhere to send a clear message to the fossil fuel industry and their financiers that this grotesque greed is punishing the poorest and most vulnerable people while destroying our only common home, the planet.
A large volcano has started to erupt in southwest Iceland. The Icelandic Met Office is urging people not to go near the volcano, which is around 30 kilometres southwest of the capital, Reykjavik. The volcano is also close to the country's main airport. The airport remains open, and so far no flights have been disrupted, and it comes just 8 months after its last eruption officially ended.
For car insurance, van insurance or home insurance, call the Quote Devil. Unless, of course, you've got money to burn.
Thank you, Joan. A very good morning to you at home, or if you're indeed streaming online on the player. We're coming to you live here from Blanchardstown in West County, Dublin this morning. We've got Conan Doyle with us on cameras now this Thursday morning. Let's take an opening look at weather together now, and I have to say it's a beautiful start here in the west of Dublin at the moment. Elsewhere we are seeing some nice bright spells on the morning menu, albeit showers there through parts of Donegal into North Sligo and into North County Leitrim in those moderate to fresh northwesterly breezes. Now, right across today, in fact, we're going to see those showers linger for a time through Connacht and into Ulster. But elsewhere, some really nice sunshine on the cards, making up for those showers. Yes, so a pretty decent day in store. Top values of about 14 to 19 degrees. And finally, as we work our way into tonight, again, those showers lingering into parts of Ulster. Elsewhere, it will clear out with good, dry, settled skies to take us through into tomorrow morning, with overnight lows back to 7 to 12 degrees. So that's how it's shaping up here in Blanchardstown in West County Dublin at the moment. We'll catch you back live at 7:35.
For first-time drivers, young drivers, returning drivers, if you've had an open claim or have had too many penalty points.
The Quote Devil's always got one hell of a quote.
Sorry, we're frozen.
Sorry, we're frozen. There's a bit of a technical difficulty with Derek there.
Derek was able to keep talking and freeze at the same time.
It's amazing. I didn't realise.
Derek was able to keep talking.
I didn't believe. We didn't know that that's going to be in the work talent show now, the Christmas part or the summer party.
He's going to win again.
I mean, come on.
I mean, after the pole dancing last year.
It's unbelievable.
He wins every year. It's ridiculous.
No cameras are allowed inside to our parties. Anyway, it's time now to take a look at today's papers, starting with the Irish Times. Its headline: record tax takes boost finances ahead of budget. Record tax receipts have bolstered the government's financial position ahead of the budget.
The Examiner's headline: greater tax take to boost budget package. A €10.7 billion year-on-year swing in the public finances means the government will be able to deliver a far greater cost of living package to help struggling families in next month's. But it's next month, of course. Yeah.
Yes, it
Bring
is.
it earlier, yeah.
Up to 10 years in jail for stalkers under new laws. That's the front page of the Irish Independent. Victims of stalkers will be able to apply for civil restraining orders against them without a criminal prosecution being taken as part of major new legislation.
Battered to death in his prison cell is the top story on the Daily Mail. Gardaí have launched a murder investigation over the death of a prisoner who was beaten in his own cell in an attack that lasted a matter of seconds.
The Mirror goes with murder in the Joy. The Star also leads with that same headline.
And murdered for €200 of heroin is the headline on The Sun.
And finally, the Herald says, beaten with a kettle 2 days before cell attack. Those are the front of the pages, and up next, Terry Prone will be taking us through the stories making today's headlines, including something a little bit different. And this has been suggested by a big property developer. Could smaller gardens help solve the housing crisis?
We'll talk about it in a couple. But we'll discuss that and lots more after the break. Stick around. Welcome back. Now, energy companies are reporting record profits from massive energy price hikes sparked by the war in Ukraine.
Here with that and everything else making today's headlines is Terry Prone from the Communications Clinic. Good morning, Terry.
Morning.
It is lovely to have you here, and we are going to talk about, I spent all weekend going on about energy price hikes because energy companies are making hyper profits.
They are, but they're being very good to their employees. You have to hand that to them. Shell has given an 8% rise to, or reward to staff. And the interesting thing is, and this is one of those PR things that kind of never works, they're only giving it to people below vice president level. So it's only the true workers who are going to get it. Anyway, the thing is that if you invested in energy companies, say 5 years ago, thinking this is a dodgy one because it's going to be wind energy, there's going to be solar energy, all of that, therefore the oil companies are going to get less profitable, you were wrong. Because they are amazingly profitable.
How is it the case that they are so profitable when when energy across the globe is being stretched? The demand is surging, but is it just the case that they're continuing to maintain their profit margins and then passing it down to the customers?
I don't understand
the extra
that
expense.
question.
How is it the case that they're making so much more money?
I think that one of the things is that at the end of the pandemic, everything suddenly came back to better than normal. And then you have the war in Ukraine, which means there's more demand constraint because there's not as much energy coming from Russia.
Yeah.
And so the oil companies are saying, happy days, and they're doing really well. Now, they are, in theory, threatened. Because, first of all, the head of the UN is saying this is immoral, which is an interesting judgment to make. And secondly, even here in Ireland, there's a strong push by People Before Profit, the Labour Party and Sinn Féin, for some kind of windfall tax to be put on the energy companies on the basis that I presume they too would regard this level of profit as immoral.
When you're looking at the price of a barrel of oil, say when it was above €2, when it was 2.10, it was a lot lower than it was 20 years ago, the price of a barrel, but they were making these massive profits and it was more expensive at the pump than it had been for a very long time. And in Ireland, there have been 58 energy price hikes in 18 months.
Yeah.
So that's putting almost €1,500 on people, when Bord Gáis are making record profits, 39.5 million in the 6 months so far this year. Electric Ireland, their profits are up by 10% as well. So, like, if this tax that is proposed, this windfall tax, right, we'll say, because they are making huge profits, it's as simple as that. We're all paying more, they're making huge profits. Will they not just pass that tax on to us again?
That's a very real possibility. You are ad idem with the spokeswoman for the Department of Finance yesterday, who, in response to all of this talk about new fines, let me read it to you. She says, there is a risk of such taxes leading to higher consumer costs, negative impacts on investment in the energy sector, in particular in the area of renewables. In other words, she's saying, if you muck with what the energy sector would regard as its legitimate profit structure, dividends, all of that, then the people who might usually invest in that are going to say, well, I'm not going to invest in renewables either. I'm not going to invest in wind energy or solar energy because that lot are going to come and put a tax on me. I must say, I think it's an interesting interpretation, and the Department of Finance would always be reluctant to exercise kind of once-off impulsive taxes. But then the Department of Finance doesn't do anything impulsively.
Yeah, well, if energy companies were in state ownership, 100% in state ownership...
Well, one of them is.
One of them,
oh,
yeah.
Gosh.
But it's the dividend that they're making, what the government is making off them. We remember we had Leo Varadkar on here and we were like, what is your dividend? He has to look into that because they can increase their dividend from energy companies. Anyway.
It's a bitter pill to swallow as well when your bills are constantly going up all the time and you're wondering, well, if it's because the price of oil has gone up all over the world, then I can understand that. But if it's because it's going into the profits of the energy companies, then that's where the rub comes in. Yeah.
And where is it? Like, when is it too much? And in capitalism, it seems like it's never too much. Anyway, 0896 111 111. Should the government be doing something on this? Do you think there's any hope at all for us when it comes to these energy bills? The front of an awful lot of papers is the death of a prisoner in Mountjoy, Robert O'Connor.
There's been a certain amount of confusion on this one because the implication of the early reports was that this attack had gone on for a long time and been very coordinated. This morning's papers suggest that this man was fatally injured within seconds, that he sustained a head injury that he was going to die from immediately anyway. However, the point is that this seems to be related to wider issues, partly about drug prices, failure to pay your drug debts, and also this dead man was closely or distantly related to another man who died in prison some 7 years ago, again, in a violent thing. But the papers this morning have kind of widened the story to look at the number of prisoners who die. And they don't all die at the hands of fellow prisoners. They take their own lives or they have overdoses or whatever. But the number is remarkably high, remarkably high.
And investigations are continuing. Well, there's a number of investigations ongoing over several deaths over the last number of years, and a murder investigation has now been launched in Mountjoy Prison.
That's true. The Gardaí are across that, and apparently there are 3 reports on these deaths on Helen McEntee's desk.
Yes.
It remains to be seen what, if anything, the Minister for Justice can do to reduce the deaths in prison.
Yeah,
but it's certainly worth trying to do.
And someone has died, you know, his family are trying to live with that, and our thoughts are with them this morning. We're going to move along to something that is very different, and I just love when property developers are really so philanthropic. They're thinking about us.
Oh, yeah.
About how to solve...
It's for the greater good.
Like, I love this. Glenveagh Properties, who's one of the largest home builders in the state, they're like, lads, do you know what? According to our focus groups, you're saying your gardens are too big. Dead space out the back. How
These
about
are new gardens.
New gardens, the small, the
builds,
tiny ones. So we take a third off that. And you know what? We'll build more. It's for you. We're taking a third of your garden off.
We'll get a few more houses onto a housing estate.
Is that what's happening?
The two of you are so
cynical.
It's shocking. And I mean, you are opposed to the entire capitalist system.
It's awful.
We're raging against it.
Awful.
Well, it's in the papers every morning. But smaller gardens is the solution, Terry.
This report, apart from the focus groups for which she has such contempt, this report says, look, in the 1920s, the kind of standard back garden for working class and middle class people was this size. But why was it this size? It was this size because you had to store your solid fuel. It was this size because you were growing your vegetables. And I can't remember the third
The toilets, the outhouse.
You're right,
yes,
the outhouse.
toilets,
now, the toilets thing died in the 50s or 60s. But oddly, I can remember in nice posh Clontarf, where I grew up, we had a back garden and it was sort of in threes, not with the outside loo. There was the bit for the swings and playing. Yeah. There was the bit for growing the raspberries. Oh my God.
Lovely.
And there was a bit at the back that was my father's coal bunker. And he nurtured it and loved it dearly. So it depends on whether people have solid fuel stoves, like wood-burning stoves, in which case you do need a bit of a space to put them. But they are saying, look, we could get more houses in if you reduce the size of your garden. Now, before you go off the rails again...
Well, you're talking about a generation of houses as well with much bigger gardens, if they could fit all that in.
Like
but
your garden.
Modern houses, like mine was in the last 10 years, and it is tiny. I mean, whatever about me seeing the back neighbour in her knickers, her seeing me in my knickers is an issue.
Well, this does raise questions about the purpose of back gardens, but we will gloss over that.
They're very, very small.
This report does say something else which is interesting and which you might miss if we're discussing the more pleasing aspects of your knickers. And it is this, that it says, look, we shouldn't be in the suburbs building apartment blocks.
Yeah.
Because it's better for people to live in houses.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And I just thought that was an interesting point to be made.
No.
That's actually a fair. That's perfectly fine.
It is,
That's
and the fact that
sensible,
city centres around Ireland are kind of dying, some of the bigger ones, and we're all living in the suburbs now. There is an issue there. But your garden is tiny. You've got no side passage to bring out the bin, so you have to leave it out the back. It's
we
tiny.
actually discussed the potential of sharing the two back gardens, knocking the wall and having one big one between us.
To have a bit of space.
But then, honestly, she doesn't want that view. I mean, once that wall comes down. So, Terry Prone, thank you so much for joining us this morning. A pleasure. Cheers. You're very welcome back. Now, will having a priest in every parish soon be a thing of the past?
We'd love to hear from you this morning, 0896 111 111, because dioceses across Ireland are being forced to cluster together to combat priest shortages. Joining us to discuss this is Father Joe McDonald. Father Joe, thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
He was there saying, he was like, this seemed like a good idea yesterday, and like, why am I here?
Once he walked in that door and saw our faces.
Too late to escape.
There is an ageing population when it comes to priests in this country, and you know, you're not recruiting, there's not that many priests in Maynooth in the seminary anymore.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I suppose a priest in every parish, because there were so many parishes,
yes.
that is a thing of the past.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the average age of the Dublin priest is 73. So that's a perspective. The amount of guys retiring every year, because men that are retiring have spent 50 years as priests. So 50 years ago, there are huge classes of guys. So when they come through to retirement, there's, you know, maybe 20 or 30 or whatever it is, and they're not being replaced. So the reality is less and less priests, which means less and less masses. You know?
So that's the impact, less masses. And then is it the case then that parishes are then sharing priests?
Yeah, it's been happening for quite a while.
Okay.
You know, it's probably just starting to make news now because the bite is starting to be there. The word cluster, we've been using it in Dublin for quite a while, clustering parishes together. I see when they were talking yesterday about Cork and Ross, interesting they used the word family of parishes, which is an interesting, and I thought it was just a casual thing, but I was reading a little bit more of it last night, and I think Bishop Finton down there, he used the word family because of the idea that in a family, you know, if somebody needs care, the family is inclined to get together and care for the person who's in need.
Yeah.
So there's maybe a bit more to it than the word, you know, that suggests at the beginning.
Because the Diocese of Cork and Ross are reorganising their 69 parishes, which is a lot, into 16, this family of parishes. And I suppose when you drive around, you know, where I live, there's like three churches within a kilometre and a half of each other. You know, and that's the way it was.
Yeah.
So when it comes to this happening, is that an issue? Will that mean, like in some parishes, there'll be no mass one day and it'll get it a different day, and that it could go around?
That's already happening, but people don't realise that. It's already happening, and there'll be more and more of that. I mean, we've come through, you know, a couple of 100 years where daily mass was a thing for a lot of people.
Oh, yeah.
And you could get mass within, as you say, very small sort of, you know, literally walking distance from church to church. Well, that day is gone, and I think the daily mass thing, you know, you'll have a mass maybe in a particular church, but the following day you'll have to go a little bit further and so on to get mass rather than your local church, which people find upsetting because they've grown up with that, you know, experience.
When you say it's been happening in Dublin for years, I suppose it's manageable, relatively manageable in Dublin, in that a priest isn't going to be too far away from the next parish. When you consider all the population of Dublin, it's nearby. But in this situation, when the next parish might be a good bit away. How workable is it for priests, and especially older priests?
Yeah, and funny, I was glad to see that Bishop Gavin is addressing, like he has, which I haven't really heard much before of this, that you'd have to start asking yourself the question, how will it work practically in terms of the workload for the priest, but also just what you've said, getting from place to place. And he wants to set it up, which I think is sensible, in a way that the priest is not rushing Mass, you know, that you're literally racing to get through something, to hop in the car, to race to the next person. So he's really saying it'll be less masses, hopefully better quality, that a priest will have time to celebrate Mass properly and spend time meeting people outside the way we used to do, you know. Yeah. But we're sliding towards a situation where must-do forces you. And it's trying to get the balance between what can we offer, but what can we offer healthily in terms of respect for the liturgy rather than racing it through. And then our own health, because our own health is... I mean, I see signs of that you're asking guys who have turned 75, would you do another year? Would you do a second year, you know? Now, some of them are delighted, and it suits some of them, because you get a guy at 75 and he's really 60 at heart. Yeah. But other guys are tired. Other guys are tired before they're 70. So it's demanding, you know?
I think on busy days when we were younger, there was always another parish that had a quick priest. You know, if you had a busy day, you'd be like, we'll go up there today because we'll get it done in 20 minutes.
I don't think they've ever called me the quick priest. Unfortunately, I'm not built for speed.
But I do think with an ageing population who attend Mass, online Mass has changed the game.
Absolutely.
You know, because my mother hops around Ireland. She's like, oh, I'll have that priest today. Which is lovely. And I think it's nice for priests, and they've got it all set up, and it's great. But do you have hope? While in the census, we don't have the census from last year, the people who identify as Catholic. We've got the one from 2016, where culturally, you know, almost 80% of us identified as Catholic. Do you have hope for the Catholic Church in Ireland? Because we know that the populations have certainly decreased, people attending Mass. And do you think that this is all down... Does it have to modernise? Like, do you have to start thinking about more lay people being involved, women being involved in a lay capacity in order for it to survive? Or you think it's going to be fine the way it is?
Well, it definitely is not going to be fine the way it is. I mean, that's been the message for a long, long time. But I suppose you resist it because we get comfortable and we have a model there and so on. I find it very hopeful to hear the present Archbishop of Dublin, you know, say bluntly and clearly, regularly as he has done, the old model is no longer fit for purpose, that we have to find new ways. And he said that very directly, which gives me hope, you know, in itself. To answer your question, I think something will survive, but I think it will be unrecognisable. I mean, I think this present model is imploding. So I think the big institutional thing, I think that really has had its day in this part of the world, you know. And I think the reality is, you know, any organisation that is where we are should be asking why. Right? But when we ask why, up to now, we've said things like, oh, it's the culture and, you know, it's commercialism, it's materialism, it's social media and so on. It might be affected by all those things. Yeah. But they ask the honest question, what about us? And if you ask young people, you see, like, for example, nobody likes to be told they're boring. But we are boring. I used to think there was nothing worse than a bore, but I've realised now there is. A religious bore is the worst of all. Because if we're boring, you see, we claim God on our side. Now, how do you argue with that? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So the whole thing, I've been talking about this for a long time, reform and renewal. Somebody said to me the other day, why have we no vocations? I said, because we don't deserve them. This model is dysfunctional. And when we start to reform and renew seriously, which I'd be hopeful we will, I think we'll get vocations. And
there seems to be an understanding at the top of that as well, that there's an engagement, and then there could be hope then for the church.
Yeah, even the phrase that he uses in Dublin, we have a programme called Building Hope, and people say, is that just sort of window dressing? I think we're fortunate in Dermot Farrell in that he's serious about it.
Well, I'd love to know what people think about this. You know, if you are an active Mass goer or not, people who have children and they're in school. 0896 111 111. We'd love to hear from you this morning on the future of the church in Ireland. Father Joe McDonald, a pleasure. We hope you don't regret it coming in and having a chat.
No, absolutely. Thanks very much. Thanks for having me. Yeah, thank you.
Now, Alan, Good morning, how are you?
Good morning. I know lots of people who still go to their daily mass, but it's the funeral masses every morning. They go to them.
Oh, yeah.
And they're getting their mass.
That is so true,
yeah.
Yeah, they go along every morning to a funeral mass.
Yeah, that is so true.
And that's they're getting it.
Yeah. Very true.
Now, could your boss be spying on you? We hear how some employers are using spy tech to track their workers and finding out your rights. We're going to see you after the break.
You're very welcome back. You're watching us. They're watching us. Stop watching. Don't stop watching.
No, don't do that.
Bossware is surveillance tech used by some bosses to keep tabs on their employees working remotely.
Now, could your boss be spying on you, and what are your rights if they are? Employment Solicitor Richard Grogan joins us this morning. Good morning to you, Richard. Now, I've never heard of Bossware because I'm a total techno nerd and I just don't get it at all. So what is Bossware?
Bossware is just one of these products that is out there. Now, it's seen as something that's fantastic. Employers go, oh, we must buy this.
Oh, they love it, yeah.
They love it. Yeah, we must buy this so that we can check up on people. But actually, it's on your computer as it is. So your computer, if you take your mobile phone, your mobile phone every week is going to tell you what your average time online was.
Screen time and all that.
Yes, all of that. So you buy a computer now, embedded in that computer is a load of information that's going to cover things like how many times is there a click on the keyboard? What time does it get turned on? What time does it get turned off? When is it? How often is there nothing happening? How often is the mouse clicked? All of this is there. You don't actually need to go out and buy Bossware. All you need to do is it's already on the system. All you need to do is go in and check it.
That's the means to check it. Yeah.
So does that mean your boss could ring you up and go, just been checking your algorithms there. It doesn't seem like you've been doing anything on your computer all afternoon.
Yeah, well, now that sounds great if you're an employer. Yeah, until the employee comes down to a solicitor like me. And we then go, did you get a policy?
Is this legal? And what are the terms and conditions of your employment?
Well, there was a recent Court of Appeal decision, and it dealt with a thing where they had signs up, CCTV for security purposes.
Yeah.
And they were checking out a particular thing about graffiti, but they saw that one person was taking too long for their breaks, and they put him through a disciplinary. And the Court of Appeal said, well, that was illegal. You were using it for an illegal purpose, therefore you couldn't use it because you hadn't told people. So if you're going to be having any form of spyware, you have to tell them. So you can't be hiding in the long grass. That's the whole idea of spyware, is that people don't know you're spying on them.
You have to tell your employees that Bossware is on the computer that you have at home.
You have to tell them not only what's there, what you're using it for, their right to get a copy of it.
Right.
And exactly what it's going to be used for and why it's going to be used. Now, by the way, some of it is very legitimate, because if I'm an employer, and I have somebody working from home, I need to know that they're taking their breaks at the right time. Because I have so I can be saying, look, I need to be able to check up. So I might only be checking, is somebody taking their breaks at the right time? And I could be phoning somebody and saying, by the way, you haven't taken your breaks.
Yeah, but that is, I mean, OK, that is one legitimate use of the software or a system like that. But there aren't an awful lot of those instances where that needs to be the case. Is it not down to more an issue with trust, that if you're working for someone or you're employing someone, that they don't trust you and you don't trust them? And is that not just a toxic work relationship to be in?
The difficulty when we're advising an employer is we say, you have to have the policy. And then we say, by the way, once you roll this policy out, you're telling everybody that you don't trust them.
Yeah.
Now, generally speaking, the employer is going, I've got 20 employees, 19 of them are fine. There's one that I have a problem with. So you can't run out the policy for that one. So what you have to do is, if you're going to be doing it, very often it is being done, and good employers are actually doing it for making sure, because particularly when people are working from home, some employers will say, actually, what we are checking is health and safety, because we know you're working at home, we know you're alone, we actually still have a duty of care, so we're actually more concerned.
Right, to make sure you're all right and you're healthy.
So it is legal once they tell you what they're doing. and what they're doing. But then what are the rights of an employee at home? What are their rights? What can you say to your boss? Can you actually say, I don't want that on my software?
You can, yes, if anything that they're doing is illegal. So if, in other words...
But it's not illegal, but they're still... You still feel like you're being watched, and that can't be a good thing.
Well, if the alternative some employers say is, well, you can be back in the office and I come out of the door and I can
see you.
I can see you. So there are some things that the employee can legitimately say, like, I don't want a system whereby the camera can be turned on automatically.
Well, this is what I was going to say. Is there because some people have this notion of unplug the camera or put a masking tape over the camera.
Yeah.
Are there some, because you were talking about clicks or monitoring your mouse movements and that kind of thing. Are there systems in place as well where the employer can turn around and say, actually, yeah, every 15 minutes we want to just plug in and we want to have a look at you supping on your coffee and eating your croissant when you're supposed to be typing your presentation?
Well, if employer says, look, actually, we want to check in with you regularly, yeah, that's fine. Some employers will say, when you phone and you do Zoom now, you have people have different backgrounds behind them.
Oh, yeah.
So the employer would say, we don't want to see that background. We want to see this background.
Where you are, right.
Yeah.
We want to see that you're in the office, that you're supposed to be in. At home.
That you're not in Spain.
Over Tenerife for the week.
So there is that. It can be done legitimately. The issue on it is, and the real problem is, nobody's put any guides in place. Right. And particularly for an awful lot of employees. We don't have guides, we don't have codes of conduct. So we came out in June 2021, we're all going to be working from home. Okay, These are the issues that are coming up, but you don't get the department saying, well, we better actually think of putting in policies and procedures so that the SME sector know what they can do, what the employees can do. And this is one of the problems with the working from home thing.
And aside from what you mentioned with the security cameras or the CCTV, has this spyware specifically been tested in court yet? Or is there any challenges to it?
Most Irish employers, to be honest with you, aren't going off buying this type of thing because the computers that they have enough information. Why would you buy for something?
Okay. Now, Richard, you're going to stay with us because you're going to be answering questions. So if you'd like to ask Richard a question, he'll be back at 8:45 to answer any questions that you have.
We'll be watching you, Richard.
We'll be watching you.
Plus, boobs, beauty and bass. Is it bass? Bass or bass? Bass is the fish.
Yeah. Seabass. Okay. Sorry, I was wondering what you're talking about. Seabass in the kitchen.
We're all about that bass.
All will be explained in a few minutes.
Stick around.
Bass, bass, what?
You're very welcome back to your Thursday show, and we're here until 10 a.m.
Now, the no-nonsense skincare queen, Caroline Hirons, will be chatting beauty, Botox, and why she hates the term anti-aging, which, when I was listening to her yesterday, I was like, oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's all coming up at 8:15.
Later, Grammy winner Leo Sayer shares stories from his 50 years in showbiz and tells us why he credits Sir Paul McCartney for his trademark lion's mane. Oh, Paul.
And a reminder to get your questions in for TikTok solicitor Richard Grogan. Richard, you're still with us. So what are some of the most common questions you get asked?
Oh, it'll be about what are your rights if you're working from home and what's the issues with employers and employees as regards checking up on each other. I think that's the big ones that are going to come up.
Lovely. Annual leave, well, actually, that's our producer going, annual leave. Can we talk about that?
We can talk about annual leave.
I think she wants to know about that. So if you've got any questions, I mean, we've got a solicitor. If you want to get some free advice, WhatsApp us at 089 611 111. Richard will be back at 8:45.
And Alan's in the kitchen and something smells fishy.
Well, it is. Alberto Rossi is serving us some Seabass a bit later on. You're saying this is so simple to make,
It's so
Alberto.
simple, very easy. All you need is a nice pan, a couple of different options to go on top, and very easy.
And you're doing some prawns with it also?
Yeah, some prawns, some tomato, fennel, so nice and summery. We try to keep it fresh.
Keep it fresh and healthy.
always.
Always.
It's time now to take a look at today's papers. We'll start with the Irish Times. Its headline, record tax take boosts finances ahead of budget. Record tax receipts have bolstered the government's financial position ahead of the budget.
The Examiner's headline, greater tax take to boost budget package. It says there, a €10.7 billion year-on-year swing in the public finances means the government will be able to deliver a far greater cost of living package to help struggling families in next month's budget.
Up to 10 years in jail for stalkers under new laws. That's the front page of the Irish Independent. Victims of stalkers will be able to apply for civil restraining orders against them without a criminal prosecution being taken as part of major new legislation.
Battered to death in his prison cell is the top story on the Daily Mail this morning. Gardaí have launched a murder investigation over the death of a prisoner who was beaten in his own cell in an attack that lasted a matter of seconds.
The Mirror goes with murder in the Joy. The Star also leads with that same headline.
Murdered for €200 of heroin is the headline on The Sun this morning.
And finally, the Herald says beaten with a kettle 2 days before cell attack. That's a lot of the front pages there, but we've got people getting in contact on loads of different things, including what you were just talking about.
The Bossware, in case you don't know what Bossware is, it can be on your computer or your laptop at home. It's where your employer can see if you're working away or not. And lots of people are saying this is a very disturbing concept. Hacking into anyone's computer, especially camera, feels like a violation. You wouldn't feel safe and secure doing your job, says Helen.
I'd be onto my friend who has this, you know, on her computer. It looks at the mouse, how the mouse moves or whatever.
The clicks.
I was on the phone to her.
I've got something to go on.
But I was on the phone to her one day and I was like, "How are you?" And she was like, "I'm fine, yeah. Just here taking the kids swimming." I was like, "Are you?" She was like, "Yeah, hold on." And she just has to lean over and she just swivels it. Then she comes back. It's like Homer Simpson when he just said the water thing.
So the amount of time she just ticks that.
Oh, she just goes, oh yeah, she was off taking the kids.
I've got a better one than that for you.
Well,
go on.
Although I'm sure Richard will have a problem with me telling you about it.
Well, no.
It's called a jiggler, right? A mouse jiggler.
A mouse jiggler.
So you can get
Don't get too excited.
I was just about to
what
say.
it is, it's a little. It looks like a little USB key.
Yeah.
But it has the same phone. It has the computer reads it as a mouse. Okay. And you plug it into the USB port of the computer.
Yeah.
And every few seconds, it moves the mouse, the arrow,
so it looks like
ever so slightly, and it keeps the screen alive, so the computer doesn't lock or shut down or auto lock, or so it
looks like you're moving the mouse and working all day.
If you're getting your work done,
but that's the thing. At the end of the day, you still need to get your work done. But like those things that like. I heard the most amazing story yesterday. I was out with one of our producers, Sinead Ryan, and she said that she has an app on her phone because she has got twins now, as a woman who just goes shh
to the baby, so that she doesn't have to.
She doesn't have to. There's an app on your phone you can get, and the woman just goes for 2 hours. Shh.
You know, I could do
different types of shh.
There's literally an app for that.
I'd love that.
How fabulous is that?
0896 111 111. If you can tell us there's an app for that, we'd love to know. Loads of messages coming in. We'll get to them in just a little while.
I love it.
Wouldn't you love that for me in the meetings?
Yeah, we're just loads of it's the pre-shortage as well. Lots of texts coming in on that throughout the morning.
Yes.
It's sad to say there will be fewer priests. If priests were allowed to marry, would it solve the problem, do you think?
I don't know. Let women be involved. Anyway,
let women be priests?
I don't. Anyway, you can let us know. Up next, though, skincare queen Caroline Hirons chats about her beauty empire, the trends to avoid, and why she hates the term anti-aging. We'll be back very shortly.
You're very welcome back. Now, our next guest is an award-winning skincare expert and best-selling author.
And her no-nonsense style has shaken up the beauty industry. Caroline Hirons joins us now from London. Good morning, Caroline. How are you doing?
Morning, guys. I'm good. How are you?
Caroline, it's a pleasure to talk to you because, you know, your power within the beauty industry is fantastic because it's a power for good. And you started this, you'd worked on beauty counters and then you kind of went blogging online. When you were in your 40s is when you kind of created all of this. And with an industry that's so obsessed with youth, was that ever, even though you were only in your 40s, was that ever held against you?
Oh, always from the beginning. I mean, in terms of, you know, when I first started blogging, it was it was like makeup and nails. No one was talking about skin. And I was like, well, I'm not interested in nails. I like having them done, and I'm trained, but it's not my passion. And so I started talking to the people who were talking about makeup, saying, well, if you teach people how to look after their skin, they may not need so much foundation. And it kind of went from there. But then it would be things like, you know, like now, the derogatory term for me now, they think, is nana, as if I'd ever be hurt by being called a nana, because I am one, you know, but it's always done with a, oh yeah, well, you're old, you know, that kind of thing. But to be honest, I think I take a leaf out of, like, you know, do you remember Kathy Bates in Fried Green Tomatoes when she's like, face it, girls, I'm older and I have better insurance. I'm like, I'm going to go down that road.
Yes.
You're one fabulous nana. I mean...
Nana.
And again, nothing wrong with being called a nana whatsoever. Plenty of nanas watching this morning and be like, yeah, I'm a nana, I'm proud of it.
Absolutely.
Delighted to be a nana. It was one of the best parts of my life. How has the business changed well, it seems to be changing every year. There's a new thing, a new fad. How has it changed in the time that you've been working?
Oh, I mean, exponentially. I mean, if you think about it, I've been in the industry for 25 years. And so in that period, we've seen introduction of new ingredients, things like retinol. On the ingredient side, we've seen a push towards everyone doing skincare. So if you're a celebrity these days, especially an American celebrity, you kind of do skincare as much as you do a tequila brand these days. You know, online and the internet has been the real changing of every industry, but especially things like retail, because you have direct access to the brand and the brands can no longer ignore their customers. Not that a lot of them did, it just makes it much easier to speak to people directly. And that's had the sort of the good and the bad, I suppose.
And what do you make of, you know, that sort of celebrity getting in on things like skincare? Because they've always been used to sell skincare. It was always their faces it was put on. Now they're just going, do you know what, I want a bit of the profits as well, and slapping their name on it. Like, do you think it's a bad thing for the industry or good?
I think, you know, for the app, I reviewed the two biggest launches this year in terms of celeb, which was Hailey Bieber's Rhode, and then obviously Kim Kardashian's Skin.
Yes.
And Hailey Bieber's was far better, and it's a quarter of the price. So with the Kim Kardashian range, I said, look, if you love Kim Kardashian, you can afford it because it's not cheap. Knock yourself out, but never lose sight of the fact that this is a lifestyle purchase, not a skincare purchase.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nothing you can't buy anywhere else. And in fact, some of it is worse than something you'd buy in a pharmacy. So it's they all want to put their stamp on skincare. I mean, I suppose they would. You know, they do it for makeup. We can't be elitist and be like, well, you couldn't possibly do skincare. I think they just have to be very careful in the story they're telling.
Yeah.
You know, what people are so tired of hearing is it didn't exist, so I had to make it myself. I was inspired by my nana at the kitchen sink. She would make something for me with olive oil.
Bananas.
I think if you just want to say, I have much more respect when people go, I love skincare, I wanted to do a skincare brand, but I've liaised with this scientist or this dermatologist, and then knock yourself out. There's no difference to any other brand launching, but you have to have some science and something behind you that says, okay, you've taken the time to make the effort here, not just...
And isn't that better? Couldn't you trust the product a little bit more rather than, for instance, Kim Kardashian got out the blender from under the sink over the weekend and she made up something with bananas and
that's all she uses, only her skincare line.
You can't believe that, though, either, can you? So you need to find a reviewer that you trust.
In that one, and I'm not against comparing, it's just that the people who tend to bring them out, with the exception of like Pharrell and now Idris Elba and his wife have brought a range out, but it is generally women who bring ranges out. But Kim Kardashian, in her defense, which is words I don't say often, but she didn't do the grandmother story. She just did I've worked with the best people and this is the best stuff. It's not, but it's when they try and tell you that the only thing they use is olive oil, like J-Lo, who is divine. Trust me, we know you're amazing. We know you work hard at it, but you don't get that face at 53 without tweakments, without a little bit of an injectable, without a bit of help, without laser treatments. It just doesn't happen. Mother Nature is not that kind to just one person, and it's not olive oil. Yeah, and it's not in a bottle. I suppose another one of the things that's changed as well is sort of the perception of the beauty, skincare and beauty industry as a whole. That even in terms of our discussion now, it's not frivolous and girly and you know, it's a proper business. You're talking about billions. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, in the UK, I'm not sure what it is in Ireland, but they won't be far behind because the Irish people that I know, that members of my group and readers and stuff, are obsessive. It's £28 billion a year in the UK. Wow. £28 billion a year. And, to have the government sort of laugh at us in Parliament and almost poo-poo it, I was just like, oh, I don't think so, son.
This is what I've watched what you said for such a long time, and you're like, this employs millions of people around the globe. Like, to brush it off like that it's insane, and it's important to so many people. But because it's important to so many people, just touching on the celebrities there, Jane Fonda was talking yesterday about how she's always been so open about the treatments that she's had. She regrets her facelift.
Facelift?
Her facelift.
Facelift.
Just the one.
Facelift.
Say facelifts. Sorry, facelifts. But do you think it's disingenuous and very hard for normal people like us to be like, okay, if I just do this, I will look like that, when we all know that people are not being transparent about the surgical help that they're happening, and it's perpetuating this sort of lifestyle that if we just do this, we can be like them, when that's just not true?
I think it depends on the audience. I mean, when I say Jane Fonda's had more than one facelift, I don't say it in a derogatory way. In one way, Jane Fonda admitting she's had a facelift is almost done to take the pressure off, as if we couldn't tell. But it's more than one, and she's pure Hollywood born and bred. Of course she's going to have facelifts. She's in California, that's what they do. And I don't think, my mum looks at Jane Fonda and goes, oh, she looks amazing. I wish I could get the work done she's had done. She doesn't think, oh, she looks amazing. I feel less about myself because I don't look like that. She knows she's had work that my mum's not going to have done.
Yeah.
So I think it depends on the audience. If my readers say, oh, I want to look like so-and-so, and she, and there's certain people who are very famous and they say they haven't had anything done, and you just think, oh, please stop lying, because then they're going to make me the bad person, because I don't want to out people. It's also not my place to say, oh, you've definitely had stuff done, don't lie. But that's not what I'm about. But my frustration comes when you want to go, oh, you're going to need more than a cream to fix this. Yeah. Because then the person that I'm talking to thinks I mean it about them.
Yeah.
I can't win. I'm like, no, I'm not saying you do. I'm saying anyone. I'm trying to read between the lines. What I'm saying is anyone who wants to look like this needs to go and see a doctor and a needle. Not just a cream.
But again, talking about change, like, it seems to be the case that more and more people are being honest about it, and the more honesty that's coming from even celebrities saying, yeah, I got it done, or I had a little tweak here, or the better, and the more honest is in the honesty, it's great. I wanted to talk, before I talk about the app Skin Rocks, which I want to get into, why do you hate, we've heard all morning that you despise the term anti-aging. Why? What's your issue with that?
I mean, I did a video before I was on YouTube years ago at the beginning of the blog. Do you remember Pixie Woo, like the Chapman sisters? I did a video with them and it just came out, and I just said, I hate the term anti-aging. Aging is a privilege that not everyone gets. And to be so, I don't want to look older. That's the whole thing about when people think they're actually dissing me by calling me a nana. I'm like, yes, I am. And she is the best thing that's ever happened to me. And I would not be 25 again if you paid me. I might have a 25-year-old's bladder control. I would take that after 4 babies.
Does that come in a bottle?
It's Ireland. I can say that. It's fine. It's not America. It's
fine. You're fine. You're absolutely fine. There's no going on trampolines for a lot of women that are watching right now.
Trampoline? Why would you do that at my age? Come on. Absolutely not. Recipe for disaster. But yes, so I'm not anti-aging. I'm pro-aging. Embrace what you look like. Going back to tweakments, to me now, it's getting to the point where if you can afford it, it's no different to bleaching your hair, waxing. It's tweakments. You're not, do what you want to do. It's no one else's business. Yeah. Just don't believe the hype when a brand tries to tell you that this is going to, the main thing is that it's going to change the structure of your skin. Nothing's going to change the structure of your skin without an intervention.
Now, Caroline, we need to talk about your app. This is called Skin Rocks. I was using it yesterday, and it's so tell us about the idea behind the app.
Well, I knew when I came to be doing a brand, I didn't want to do the brand in my name. I knew it had to be separate from me because, for better or for worse, my name brings some people joy and brings some people very much annoyance. Usually people in the industry that I've sort of gone, oh, really? But I just knew I wanted to separate the two. But then I started thinking, how am I going to... I don't want to make another skincare website. I've got one. My blog's now 13 years old. So why would I do that? And I was literally in the shower and I went, oh, my God, it needs to be an app. Because I know there's no app out there that I use for skincare. I look at them. They all do different things. There's the odd one that offers you offers. The Ordinary Destia make an app that makes it easy for you to use their products and integrate them with other products, but it doesn't really talk about the other products. And I just thought we need a Switzerland of a database where people can go and sort of just look at what it is, what's in it. You know, so many brands still don't publish their ingredients online. What's wrong with you people? And then that kind of spawned it. And then I said, well, we have to launch with as many products as we can get. There'll be some caveats, you know, the brands would help us upload their info, but then it was all checked by hand by my team to make sure they weren't making ridiculous claims and, you know, they weren't sort of saying things that it couldn't say. So, for example, when a brand uses bakuchiol, if they call it a retinoid, a little sort of warning pops up from me, like that. You know, fact check, bakuchiol is not a retinoid.
Yeah, and you can learn so much more on there as well. It's called Skin Rocks. It sounds fantastic. Dare I say, at the risk of being killed, or you coming back at me, that it wasn't built, so you decided to build it yourself. Much
Actually,
like,
it's true, and I've never thought of it that way before, so thanks.
Much like the Kardashians. It's called Skin Rocks, and you can get it wherever you get your apps, on the App Store. Caroline Hirons, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me, guys, and hello to all my friends and readers in Ireland. I'll be over at some point soon. Hopefully.
We're looking forward to it.
Lovely. Thank you,
Cheers,
Caroline.
Nana. Have a good day.
Cheers, Nana. That's it.
Bye.
Hello, welcome back. Fancy something a little fishy for dinner?
Well, why not? Alberto Rossi from the Intercontinental Hotel has got you covered this morning. Good morning to you, Alberto.
Good morning, darling. Good morning, Muireann. How are we?
Good morning, Alberto.
Something simple, you were saying.
Simple, you know, we are still in summer mode, so we have Seabass, prawns, tomato, fennel, capers, all the fresh flavors of summer, you know?
Now that
Lovely.
just makes me so happy.
You can get the Seabass already cleaned. You know, Seabass, it's an easy fish. It's a small fish, and you can get it already clean and ready to go from the fishmonger. You know, that means that there's no spines, and you know they can cut it for you and make it sure. So there's not much messing about in the kitchen.
And you know the way monkfish really shrivels down. Is Seabass the same sort of a fish?
Seabass, no, it stays the same.
Yeah.
You know, it stays the same. Once you hit the pan, it kind of tense up a bit, but it's normal once you have it. But it doesn't reduce too much, you know, so you don't lose much during the cooking.
All right.
So
they're quite thin.
Yeah, they are quite thin, and that is what makes it easy to cook, you know. So as you see, it's skinned down in a pan that it's hot, but not like piping hot, so you don't burn it, you know.
Puffs up immediately.
And that's it. Pops up a bit, but then relaxes again, you know. Usually in a professional kitchen, you have to keep it down so you get the same color all over the skin, but at home, you don't need to be that picky,
You don't need to be like that.
You do that because you want it exactly the same.
Exactly.
Right,
so if the pan is too hot, it shovels up, and then the skin breaks, so then it's not nice to present it like that, you know.
We eat with our eyes,
Exactly.
Alberto.
So we have this fillet of Seabass that's already cooking. Then I have a couple of prawns that I just cut in little pieces, because then we'll add it to make the sauce as we go. We have some fennel that I diced, some tomatoes that I diced, and then lemon. Lemon is, you know, a lot of people add lemon to the fish as you're cooking. Yeah. In this case, we just diced up, you know, we take the skin off.
little bits of lemon in
little
there.
bits of lemon, capers, fennel, as I said, and then you have the butter, and we're going to put some lemon juice and everything. Because this, you use the butter to make the sauce that goes with it.
Yes.
But then you need a little bit of lemon juice to stop the butter from cooking and burning and ruining everything.
Okay.
You know? So as you can see, it's already starting to get white on the side. So that means that it's cooking, and you're going to need a lifter, and you're going to turn it. Try not to burn your fingers.
Lifter. I love it, a lifter.
A lifter, or spatula, if you want to call it, you know.
A lifter, I love
Alan employs someone to do that for him. He's got a person as his lifter.
A lifter.
Just because, you know, we have the one that are plain and the one with the holes in it. So in the kitchen, you have all these different names, you know.
There we go.
If you've got a cook in your house and you don't know what to buy him a lifter.
Buy him a lifter.
There you go.
I tell you, you know, it's great for everything, and you can make a lot of noise by banging it on the table if you use your
There
spoon,
you go.
So you're making the sauce. So are we making the sauce?
We are making the sauce
pan?
as we go in the pan. So now I turn the fish, and you know, it's almost ready to go. So in this case now we start to put some butter. So we'll also help the cooking. Okay, we keep it nice. As you can see, it starts to melt.
Yeah.
Try not to have it too hot, otherwise it'll burn, and then it's not nice anymore. You know what you want is called beurre noisette. That it starts to burn a little bit, and it takes the flavor of hazelnuts and everything. You know. It toasts.
Okay.
So as you can see, I added it like that, and then we start to add everything else that goes in.
Can I ask you how much butter has actually gone in there now?
I say I probably put in about 100 grams. I could go
100 grams
over.
of butter.
I could go over the edge. Now you don't have to serve it all, okay?
Because I just say the fish is going to taste amazing because it's been cooked in
course
100
it
grams
is.
of butter.
Everything with butter is much better.
It's so much better.
It cooks very quickly, no? And you can see even the prawns starting to cook. And then we add in the rest of the ingredients. That's the
so
fennel, the
good.
tomato, the caper, and everything.
So it's as simple as
Alberto.
that.
Yeah, it's
all
simple as
just in the
that.
pan.
Exactly. And then you just, once the fish is ready, because it
What would
takes
you
no
serve
time to
this
get
with,
ready.
Alberto?
As I said, you could serve it with potatoes, or you could serve it with broccoli, you know, something fresh, or even a salad, a nice size salad on the table.
Yeah.
Because you have already some vegetables, some
gonna
extra
think that,
flavor,
yeah.
you know, with it. So don't go too heavy, like, you know, don't go roast potatoes or stuff like that.
Yeah, but
too much.
baby new potatoes maybe would be lovely.
Yeah, we do baby new potatoes, and we do a little bit of broccoli, you know, tender stem.
Tender stem broccoli.
So very nice
Yeah.
because they are due now, you know, and they're nice and fresh.
Oh,
so
this
there
looks
is your
absolutely
Seabass, you know, that's the second one.
It looks beautiful.
It looks so good.
And then you have the sauce going here. Like,
And so
basically
you've
it's
just
cooked-
cut the prawns very
you dice
small.
everything
Dice
small, so everything cooks so easy. You know, and now you can see, you turn it off, you put in a little bit of lemon juice. So as I said, that'll stop the butter from keep cooking and burning. Because the flavor there switches very quickly. And then I have here a little bit of parsley with maybe some chives, whatever flavor people like. And then your
That's
sauce
it.
is ready, yeah.
And then I unfortunately have tea to go with it, but a glass of white wine.
You can add a little bit of salt to the sauce too, just to make sure. And then you can see, you know, the butter is not burned.
No.
And then you put it over.
I thought I loved every single word Alberto said with his Italian accent in English,
Until
but I
he
think
said Turner.
I think it has to be lifter. I think
Lifter,
I think it has to be burned.
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 The burn.
The way you say burned is fantastic.
You know, yeah, we
You
use
don't
all
want the
the...
burned.
Burned.
That's it. And then you can make it pretty by adding stuff. Like we obviously, us in work, we have to make sure that the food looks as good as possible. So we always have flowers.
Look at him.
Look at the little
you know.
flowers. Far from
yeah.
flowers on our food. I was around, I'm
makes a-
telling you. And
Makes a
Muireann
difference.
O'Connell.
A little bit of the fennel top, you know, so you have all the flavor there.
Oh,
fantastic.
look at
There
that
you
on
go.
screen.
And now we're going to ruin it by eating
Exactly,
it.
by tasting it.
Oh, this
okay?
is fantastic, Alberto.
Another one there.
There you go.
Let's go.
Enjoy. So it's very summery, very easy. When I say easy, I mean that you don't have to
Look at
get
that
too
fish.
many
It's
things
just
there.
so lovely and white.
Nice glass of wine with this,
Oh,
and you're sorted.
it's beautiful.
And if people don't like prawns, don't put the prawns.
Don't put prawns in.
But that
Very
is
simple.
so good,
It's
Alberto.
so
Very
Thank
good.
you so much from the
And it's still
Intercontinental.
summer, nice and fresh, clean.
Nice and fresh.
Nice
they
and
serve
fresh.
it with potatoes, baby potatoes in the Intercontinental.
Thank you,
so much.
Alberto.
No
Now,
problem. It's my pleasure.
Thank you. From remote working to annual leave and sick pay, Solicitor Richard Grogan answers your work-related questions after this quick break.
Welcome back. Employment solicitor Richard Grogan is back with us to answer some of your work-related questions this morning. And we were chatting earlier on, Richard, about Bossware and your boss keeping an eye on you and watching your clicks while you're working from home. Now, this is separate to you actually being inside in the office. That you could be at home and they're monitoring, or they have the potential or the capacity to monitor what you're up to. We're asking for your questions on text this morning. This is from Helen. I work in a financial institution where there are cameras, CCTV over every counter. Obviously, no issue with this due to the nature of the business. But there are numerous monitors in upstairs work areas that are constantly viewed by admin, etc., which is not part of their job or responsibility. We've been told on several occasions that you don't look busy when I phoned you and you didn't pick up. So they could be looking at the CCTV and ringing in, and you don't look busy, you don't pick up the phone. Does this type of monitoring seem excessive, or the audience scope of who's doing the monitoring from Helen? I suppose the question then is the legality of that. How legal and how appropriate is it?
The first monitoring is absolutely fine because that's for a financial purpose. You're going to have monitoring in financial dealing
Over
rooms.
your desks and stuff like that.
That's a security issue.
Right.
Yeah. Now, the other, completely illegal. And even if you've written a policy on it, that's a claim down to the Circuit Court. My rights have been breached. Thank you very much. That's illegal.
In
Stop
private areas, like so if you have a small canteen, can a camera be put in there?
No.
It can't.
No, it can be put in if they're monitoring to make sure that you're not sending out financial information that sort of thing. But it can't be used for...
to say you're taking 7 minutes instead of 5 for your tea break.
Yeah, well, it should be 15 is the minimum.
No, but you know what I mean.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but so, no, they can't use it for that unless it's in a policy, and then it has to be proportionate. If you've got a place like that, yeah, fine, enjoy a day down to the circuit court. In that case, will never run on because they'll just have to settle it. It cannot be done. That's illegal.
And what kind of settlements could be in...
Well, settlements, you usually get more for a settlement than you could do for a fight.
Right.
And if you're a financial institution, you don't want to be down with somebody telling you that you're doing something illegal. You're going to be stopping it very quickly, and the admin staff shouldn't be doing that.
Right. OK, what about cameras? There's another question here from Terry who said, like, there's cameras in a small local shop that he works in, and he's no problem with that because of security. But it's the boss listening in on conversations. He sort of says that he has a fear of that.
That's illegal as well. So if you've got to sign up, and this actually came up in the Court of Appeal recently, and the sign was up saying, no, CCTV for security purposes.
Yes.
Thieves will be prosecuted. And this individual, they then checked the CCTV and said he was taking too long for his breaks. The Court of Appeal said that was illegal use of the information.
And you can't be listening to people, what the staff are saying among themselves.
Unless you're doing it for, if it's a security issue, yes, but not to see is somebody having a chat about their holidays or something like that. So, employers doing that, very, 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 very iffy.
I suppose it's going to become more and more... it already has, and it's going to become even more and more prevalent with the changes and the advances in technology, because for 50 quid, you can jump on the internet, order a camera that's connected to an app, and employers have the potential then to stick a little camera anywhere and to be keeping an eye. But I suppose you need to be aware of your rights and aware of your legal standing then when it comes to it.
Employers need to have proper policies put in place.
Put them in place for people.
They need to know what they're doing and what they legally can do. And unfortunately, as I said at the start of the programme, there are no codes and no guides. And the Department of Enterprise, Trade and Employment really need to be bringing these out as part of this whole thing of working from home so that people have it. Now, the Data Protection Commissioner is very good on them, but, this is real, issues that people are having, and it's a big issue.
Another text, a seminary, we were allowed to use vans for private use, but the company put trackers in the vans to cut down on cost. Can the trackers be used again against you for timekeeping? I suppose they're watching where the van is, so then they know where, if you're doing your deliveries and you've gone for lunch.
Yeah, again, if proper policy in place, yes, they can, if it's proper, and you know what it's been used for. The thing is, people knowing what it's been used for, and then they can check, is it a legitimate use?
Right.
So, by the way, you might not want to know where a van is, because if there's a delivery comes in or somebody wants a collection,
you need to know where it is. How much notice do I need to give my employer when leaving? I'm working for almost 3 years. I don't have a contract. I'm working next week and then have 2 weeks holidays. Can I give the week's notice and use my holidays as notice also?
It's 2 weeks. But you can't use the holidays as part of the notice.
So even though you had 2 weeks holidays, you can't. So you have to give 2 weeks holiday notice. So they'll have to come back and work an extra week.
Yeah.
And further free advice, can an employer change my working days from a Monday to Friday to a Tuesday to Saturday? Or just unilaterally make the decision? I've worked in this organisation for over 12 years, working Monday to Friday.
That's an interesting one.
Now they're changing the days, Tuesday to Saturday.
You may have a choice there. You might have to decide, do you want to go for redundancy in those circumstances?
Really?
That really is as much as you have. You could say it's a significant change in my employment. So you have to either accept it.
But you have to accept it.
Well, you either accept it or you're going for redundancy. That's the problem.
But so you do have to accept it or lose your job?
Yes.
The job isn't there. The Monday to Friday job is gone.
Yeah,
it's Tuesday to Saturday.
Saturday, it's a different job.
Quick one. Is it against GDPR to have your work email on your phone or home computer?
It's not against the law, but it's the stupidest thing that you'll ever do as an employee. Because if some issue comes up and down in court and there's a GDPR request, now suddenly your personal phone and your personal home computer has to be checked to do a GDPR compliance. So I would, and also home computers, they don't have the same protections on them, malware and all the rest. So really, no,
use a different device or use a work device.
Thank you so much for that.
Follow you on TikTok.
Great advice. Thank you so much. Lots more after the break. We'll see in these.
very welcome back to Ireland AM for your Thursday morning. I'm here with one of the newest recruits training to be a guide dog, and Zita is a puppy raiser. Zita, you're very welcome. Who's this?
How are you doing? This is Ozzy.
Ozzy, and how long have you been training puppies?
He's 7 months. I thought I was anticipating that. But I've been doing it probably about 15 years.
15 years?
Yeah. He's number 12.
Number 12. He's a beaut. He's absolutely gorgeous. Yeah. More chats with Ozzy a little bit later on. You can find out how you can volunteer to be a puppy raiser yourself a little bit later on. But now it's back to you guys in the studio.
Oh, look at Ozzy.
I've got trouble committing. Is that the perfect way to kind of be like, I've got a fear of commitment, and it'd be like I could just take a puppy for a little while. Oh my God.
Absolutely beautiful. Thanks, Ray. Also still to come, Grammy Award winner Leo Sayer talks 50 years in showbiz and still making people feel like dancing.
Plus, we discuss why Ireland's breastfeeding rates are so low and how we can scrap the stigma once and for all.
But it's...
Hello. Welcome back. Our floor manager, Stephen, has found a bell. Can we hear it there, Stephen?
Come on. He's keeping us.
This is what when he wants it. When he wants
attention.
He wants us to give
I said
attention.
if he does that one more time, that bell will go missing, and it won't be. It'll go somewhere.
To be fair, it's working. We all looked over at him, didn't we? Anyway, we've got some of your text messages. We were chatting earlier on about the fact that shortages of priests are leading to dioceses being grouped together in families in the area of Cork and Ross. And there's lots of messages coming in about this.
I was once looking at the priesthood and even began the process, but then I found out it wasn't for me. Even in religions where ministers are allowed to marry, there's also experiences shortages. It's just the vocation.
Yeah, I mean, you got to update it a little bit.
Well, that's the thing. If it's not speaking to young people are not coming into the religion, and then young people are not then inclined to get into the priesthood, which is an even further distance away from just regular people trying. Yeah. But then people do like, in some sense, community and religion and togetherness. It's just, I suppose, the...
stop, like having but it is, the big events. Like I could really feel it for Dad. I know he was a massive Catholic, but like just having the funeral, even if it was in COVID, there was only 10 of us there. It's lovely. Like it is. It kind of marks something. There's a nice ritual around it. I suppose
over the years and all those sexual scandals and everything like that have turned people away from it and just gone. Like it's just.
But this is
corrupt.
This is what Caroline is saying. A lot of people don't support the Catholic Church due to the child abuse scandals. I've got a baby, and we're getting married soon, myself and my partner. But I'm not using the church for the wedding. However, I am under pressure to use the church for a christening due to my parents' belief, and then the old getting into school.
There's just no getting away from that as well. Reputation and historical abuse, and that reputation is not just going to we can't just forget about it.
It's not historical. It happened not that long
ago.
Not
so long ago,
yeah.
And it's probably still happening around the world as we know.
You need to get into your skill.
Now, thank you. Keep those texts coming in to us. But the show must go on, and we're chatting to 70 star and Grammy winner Leo Sayer right after the break.
Welcome back. Now, for 50 years, our next guest has made us feel like dancing.
Yeah, let's remind ourselves of some of the Grammy winner Leo Sayer's chart-topping hits.
Shaking on the string, you make me feel like dancing. I wanna dance the night away. You make me feel like dancing. I'm gonna dance the night away. I miss you more than I can say. Why must my life be filled with sorrow? Oh, love you more than I can say. I feel thunder in my heart that takes my breath away. I feel thunder in my heart. Will I ever be the same?
Oh, yes, and Leo Sayer joins us now to talk about his incredible career in pop music. Good morning to you. How are you, Leo?
Good morning, guys. Nice to be here.
It's great to see you. Looking back 50 years, when you started out in the music industry, I mean, 50 years, you'd never think 50 years later you were going to be still gigging around and people buying your records.
I don't think any of me or my contemporaries ever... I mean, do you remember that interview with Mick Jagger where he said, oh, yeah, I think we'll do about 5 years and then it'll all be over. So, I mean, and they're 60 years, so we're all extraordinarily surprised. But I suppose we made good music and it has lasted like a fine wine, hasn't it?
It certainly
Sure
has.
yeah. And you mentioned Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones, and I suppose you've rubbed shoulders with them all. But the Beatles were contemporaries of yours, and did you know them all individually down through the years?
I've met them all, yeah, basically. I mean, the first day that I met my manager, Adam Faith, and he we signed up, and he was a pop singer, of course, in the 50s and 60s. People will remember him. But he impressed me by, we went to a dinner, and out of a side door walked Paul McCartney to give me some advice as a young guy. This was the clout of Adam, of course. But, it was incredible. I met all these guys in my travels around the world. Used to go motor racing in Los Angeles with George Harrison, and and hanging out with the Stones. But also before, in my early career, I used to be a blues singer and harmonica player. So I would play with the Rolling Stones and people like that. We'd all jam together. So it was this wonderful time of the 60s and the 70s when these things happened.
And Leah, one of your trademarks obviously is your hair, because when we've been looking at the videos, the hair has always been there. Yeah, it's always been there.
And
is it true that the advice came from Paul McCartney, never cut your hair? It is a trademark
That's
for
what
you.
he said, yeah. Yeah. And it's really funny that many, many years later, when Paul was with Wings, I bumped into him in Los Angeles. Well, a car pulled beside me, and it was him, and he said, get in. And we were going to the legendary Tower Records, I was going to buy some records, and he was going as well. So he said, get in the car. So we went with him, and the first thing he said, and this is like, 20 years later, or even more, and he said, you took my advice then.
You didn't cut the hair; it's still there.
Yeah, exactly.
It's your trade, it's your lucky hair, your lucky hairstyle. You're a big F1 fan. You mentioned driving. A big Formula One fan. I suppose it's had an explosion in popularity with the Netflix series Drive to Survive.
It has. I don't know if it's like the days when I was following it, but I'm still following it. It's still a great sport. I think the problem is now, is it culturally, acceptable to burning all this gas and spending all this money? So as you get older, you think about these things, don't you?
You probably focus on the more and more. That documentary about Ayrton Senna as well Senna was the name of it a couple of years ago. Absolutely fascinating. You knew him. Did you get caught speeding with him?
Yeah, he was a really good friend. And we spend a lot of time together. I mean, I used to be in the pits with all the guys. I was very lucky because I knew the top people in the sport, and I always got the best card, the best badge to get into it and follow it. And I travelled all around the world with the guys. Went to, one year I did about 14 races, so I covered the entire year. I wasn't doing very much that year, of course, in the 80s, so it was a nice opportunity to see another sport. And I used to see George Harrison, as I said, on a lot of the races as well. And, George and I, we really helped Damon Hill's career. We pushed for him to be a racing driver, in Formula One when he was on the outskirts of it all. So it's a nice sport. I mean, I met a lot of friends through it, wonderful friends.
And I mean, Leah, you're there and you're just name-dropping. You're just name-dropping all these people.
I'm sorry, I'm trying not to.
That's your life.
We love it.
Yeah,
we love
real.
it. That's the business
I'm
you're
a regular fella, really.
Yeah, that's the business you're in. But do tell us the story about Elvis.
It's a long story, so I'll try and shorten it right down. I fell off stage in 1977 in a place in Alpine Valley in Wisconsin. And a few dates later, although I didn't really break any bones, amazingly, after falling 25 feet, I managed to sort of carry on doing concerts, but I was in a lot of pain. And I had a reaction when we got to Memphis, Tennessee. And I locked up in the dressing room. I was in a ball. Nobody could get me out of it. I couldn't, stretch my bones and get out of it. So they called a guy, a trainer came and took me away with him for a few days. And he worked for someone really important in town, but he wouldn't tell me who it was. And so in the end, I kept badgering him about it. As I was feeling better, his work was really working. I was back to fitness. And one day he put the phone to me and just said, "This is my boss." And this voice came on, "This is Elvis Aaron Presley." And it was really him. I didn't believe it, but Michael, the guy, was nodding in the background saying, it's him, that's my boss. So
well, you are in Memphis in Tennessee. There you go.
If you're going to get a recommendation
you
from
know,
anyone.
I mean, we're in the play. Location. So we talked, and it was the most incredible conversation. And he invited me next day, come to Graceland. I had a few days grace before I had to kind of go off on tour. So he said, come to Graceland, come and hang out. That would be great. I love your energy. Michael's told me all about you. And so this is, wow. You know, how does a guy from Shoreham-by-Sea get into this, in Sussex in England, get into with a mother from Fermanagh, get into this situation, you know? It's like, wow. But the next day, I was recording on my radio cassette recorder, which was a pretty unique thing to have in those days in 77. And I was recording all the gospel and the radio shows, you know, which are incredible in the South. And suddenly an announcement came on: the singer, Elvis Presley, has been taken dead on arrival. See, I've still got this tape. I remember the words: to Memphis Baptist State Hospital, and we're sorry to give this news. We will be covering it as the day goes on. So Michael, the guy who was going to take me to Graceland, came in and said, look, here's the keys. You lock up and take yourself to the airport because I've got to be with the family.
Oh, my God.
So never got a chance to see him. But years later, his girlfriend at the time, Ginger Aldrin, came to London, and she wanted to speak to me because she had to tell me how excited Elvis was that night. She said, and you know, I'd stopped telling, I'd never told anybody about it because I thought nobody will ever believe me. But when she said that to me, I thought, maybe now I can tell the story. So there it is.
Incredible.
I'm writing a book at the moment.
Yeah, you have
my book, Just a Boy.
Yeah, I was going to say,
it's going to come out, and that will have the full story of all these things.
You'll have it all
adventures.
in. And I'm sure one thing that we'll look back on when the autobiography comes out, I mean, so many things have been positive in your life and great stories. One of the things that you look back on, you said, I should never have done it, I'd never do it again, was Celebrity Big Brother.
Oh, God. I think anybody who's ever been on that show would say the same. I mean, look, it's just a big fix-up. It was bloody awful. That's all I'll say about it.
And it was the year of Jay Goody and that whole...
Schilpachetti and the race row.
The race row and everything.
The show was imploding around me. I mean, nobody will ever have seen the clever things that I did. I mean, I took down a whole wall. I found a little piece of metal, and this wall came down, and all the cameras were revealed. I tell you, they hated me on Big Brother so much that they really went against. And then in the end, I broke down a door and escaped.
You legged it.
Because I'd had enough.
There's talk of them bringing it back, Leo Sayer. I take it you won't be answering the phone if they call for another version of Celebrity Big Brother. You're coming to Ireland. Will you be?
We're coming in. No, that's positive.
Yes, there's a positive story from Big Brother. Yeah, you're coming, and you're going to be doing two dates. You're going to be in the Ulster Hall in Belfast and the Cork Opera House, and it's this month. It's August.
And the Bord Gash on the 28th.
And the Bord Gash, the
of course, the 3 dates.
Dublin, Belfast, and Cork.
Yeah, well, what happened was we were coming in 2019, and then COVID came in, and the Irish government quite rightly said no gatherings over 200 people. So after Limerick, we had to go home.
Right.
So this is the continuation of that tour. And it won't be the last visit, guys. I love coming to Ireland. I love playing in Ireland. The audiences are incredible. They sing along with every song. Yeah, it's just amazing.
And you have lovely memories of Ireland because your mum from Fermanagh and going to, you visited Ireland for many years during your childhood.
Yeah, in my youth, yeah, exactly. All that formative, from 3 years old until 14, every summer was spent in Ireland, on the farm in Fermanagh.
Well, look at so the Bord Gash on the 28th of August, the Ulster Hall in Belfast and the Cork Opera House. So get along to see the wonderful Leo Sayer. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us this morning and interrupting your gorgeous holiday in Italy for us.
The sun's shining, it can wait for me. It's good.
Cheers, Leo Sayer.
Thank you so much.
Safe.
Thank
all the
you.
best. Bye.
Cheers,
50
guys.
years.
50 years in the business.
We were talking about skincare earlier on. We need to find out Leo Sayer's regime.
And that hair, that mop of hair still.
The hair does a lot of the heavy lifting. It looks fantastic. Fair play to him.
Welcome back. Now, this week marks World Breastfeeding Week. Ray is very disappointed not to be doing this topic because, as he shouted a minute ago, I've got the biggest breasts on the couch today. Anyway, I am joined by Lactation Consultant, hi love, Katie Mugan this morning. Good morning, Katie. How are you?
Thank you, Muireann. Delighted to be here.
With World Breastfeeding Week, and I'm seeing it all online, people are very proud of the fact that they breastfeed, which is fantastic to see after so many years of it being shameful on women's bodies and hide them away. But in Ireland, we've got a very low rate of breastfeeding. So why is it?
We do indeed. I think we have to look at all the factors. There's quite a few. I think education is one of the biggest factors. I think because people believe that breastfeeding is natural, that it equates to being easy. And that's not always the case. Some mums will go out and they will end up having a really easy journey. Baby will latch and it just works. Other mums will have a few little bumps along the way, and other mothers will have significant issues that need to be overcome with lactation support. A lot of parents will do breastfeeding, or they will do antenatal classes. They do the birthing, the labour, but a lot of the time there's only a snippet of infant feeding in it. And this leads then to parents not understanding what to expect in those early days and weeks, not understanding how it works. Realistically, having a realistic expectation of what breastfeeding entails in those early days and weeks. So education is key, and we know that if a parent has education prior to having their baby, if they hope to breastfeed or have a thought that they're going to do it, then that will lead to a much more positive journey on the other side. We not only have to look at education of the parents, we need to look at the healthcare professionals themselves. If you look at it, I find a lot of my clients will come to me and they say, look, I'm told something by one midwife, something by another midwife, then the PHN says something else, and then the GP says something else. So they just get all this conflicting advice.
Yeah.
I think we need to just improve our education in the healthcare service itself, so that we're all singing from the same hymn sheet, essentially.
I think with all of this, it can be quite militant, which the world of breastfeeding, it really is. Like, it's been quite scary. But I've seen friends of mine, honestly, at the end of their, like crying, trying to breastfeed their babies. And it's not just issues of mastitis, it's issues of babies not latching on, and they think that they're doing something wrong and it's not working out for them. We have to understand that sometimes women just can't do it either.
Absolutely, but I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think we need to look at support here.
Yeah.
And support is key. And we see our breastfeeding rates are, actually the initiation rate isn't like, it's not ideal. It's in around the 60s, 70s. But then we have a huge drop-off point from the time, in the first few days of life where the baby is there. And it's really down to lack of support. Our healthcare service is crumbling as it is. There's not enough support. Midwives are understaffed or under-resourced. PHNs, we have a huge reduction in the PHNs available for support. So
the public health nurse.
Public health nursing service.
Over 600 job vacancies with public health nurses.
You can understand, they are at crisis point and they're trying to facilitate seeing mothers. They don't have the capacity to sit for an hour to two, to console, to educate, to support a mother, and actually really see and pick up these red flags where babies aren't, maybe excessive weight losses and all these kind of things that come with it. So
yeah.
Support is key. I think having somebody there, and you see, like, if your mother breastfed, you're more likely to breastfeed. If you have friends that breastfeed, they're more likely to try give it a go. But support is crucial. But I do think you've made a valid point. We have to accept that breastfeeding isn't for everyone. I would wish that everyone would give it a go, but that's not my choice. It's down to informed choice. And if a parent makes that decision in the early days, potentially this isn't for me, or they go through issues and they decide, I don't want to do this anymore, then they should be supported and educated in an alternative form of feeding.
But let's go, and I know that, like, if we're talking about education, and it's not, because breastfeeding can be expensive. Like, everyone thinks, sure, just lash the baby on and you're good to go. That's not true, and we do need specialists for this. But say someone's watching right now and they're pregnant.
Yes.
Or, they've just had a baby and they're like, oh, I know that the midwife and the public health nurse told me this, but I can't remember it right now. Can you show us? You've got a baby over here that we
do. We hid away because it was a little bit more scary.
Look at this baby's face.
So this is my demo doll. This is a baby that looks and weighs. It's a weighted doll, so slightly bigger than a newborn, I will say.
Yeah.
Poor Muireann was terrified when I showed her this earlier.
That's a hungry baby.
It's a hungry baby. So I'm going to show you just a quick demo of how to latch a baby. So first and foremost, the biggest thing is no hands in the back of the head. If we put the hand at the back of the head, it can lead to the chin going towards the chest, which we don't want. So what we want is the head tilted back, hand between the shoulder blades like this, and we turn the baby's body towards us. So the positioning of the baby is essential. So making sure the nipples are touching the belly button, the knees are touching towards the mum. Having one hand out and one hand up. So not even a piece of paper can fit between mom's chest and baby. Using the elbow to take the weight of the baby, leaning back into your chair so you're nice and supported. And then when you're going to do it, you hold your breast, bring baby's chin to breast first, and then on. When you're putting pressure from the back of the hand here, not the head.
Not the head.
And then just simply bring your arm around, nice and relaxed, and sit and feed your baby as you wish.
Because some people might be worried about just holding the neck like that.
So
it
a
might
lot
be
of
natural
parents
to be like, I
are
need to hold the
concerned
head.
and they hold the head, and this is one of the biggest things. So if we actually just have, I would often give a finger or two around the ear just to support. So the head and neck are the one area that we have to support in the baby, but the rest of the time, the rest of the baby is pretty sturdy.
And what if the baby is tongue-tied?
So tongue-tied, there's a big debate. So many of us all around the world have a tight frenulum. I have a significant, what people would class as a very tight frenulum. I was breastfed and never had any issues. A tongue tie is only an issue if it's impacting a feeding journey. So when people are mentioning that it's a mild or a significant tongue tie, that's really factually incorrect. It either is one or it's not. Otherwise, it's just a tight frenulum. And if it's not impacting, then wait and see how things go.
I'm going to say that the next night I'm out, you've got a very tight frenulum. That's going to be good, tight frenulum there. OK, let's talk about the stigma in relation to this, because I suppose I live in a world, and on social media right now, loads of my friends are throwing up pictures of them breastfeeding their babies.
Yes.
And it's wonderful to see. You're in a cafe, like everyone's breastfeeding, and it's so fabulous. Is it decreasing?
I think it's
From what you're
definitely,
hearing?
I definitely think it's improving, but I think that just takes time. The more we expose and go out, and I don't mean expose ourselves, but the more we go out and expose the public to feeding in public.
Lashing out the boob, lads.
Lashing out the boob.
We've got a boob too.
I think it is all about the more we feed in public, the easier it gets. The more people are seeing it and it's normalised, the easier it gets. I think when it comes to it, a lot of parents, the reason they don't go out, and I've had friends that say, I'm not going outside, I'm going to feed in the car and then I'll go out and I'll enjoy and then go back. When realistically, I think it's down to the fear of the perception of the reaction that's going to happen. So it's not, most of the time, as you said, I've breastfed 4 kids, and with that, I would breastfed anywhere. I was probably more nervous on my first. And if you're really nervous, do it in front of a mirror first. Practice. And it shows how you show very little skin when you're doing it. Most of the time, nobody's even watching or interested. They might look up. I've had very good reactions where mothers have come over and offered me a glass of water when my baby was kicking off a little bit and I was getting a little bit stressed. Yeah. People are very aware of it. I mean...
And can I just wonder, because with some people, I would say it's, you know, men who might not, maybe older men or men who aren't used to it, have no issue with it, but might kind of, you know, want to look away just from, because they're like, I don't want to make you uncomfortable at me looking at you. Yeah. And then I've been like, what's their problem? Like, this is all natural. But is it?
Do you know, sometimes I think we have to. There's no issue. I mean, I think we look at generations as well. The older generation are probably a little bit behind us. I would say my father, very open, always supports us. But if we were sitting there and I was breastfeeding, he'd pretty much look at the TV and we'd still have a conversation. I don't have an issue.
It's like watching certain scenes on the telly and you're all making a cup of tea because no one wants to be in with your parents.
Yes,
you know?
Exactly. Or you're not watching something on TV you shouldn't, and then your parents decide. So it's just, I think the thing is, though, as long as nobody's making negative comments, as long as nobody's asking you to leave a restaurant or something like that, then I have 100% an issue with. But I think the more we do it, the more we see other people breastfeeding, we'll have that ripple effect where people are more likely to go, do you know what, I'm going to give it a go and I'm going to be open to it.
Yeah, and absolutely. I know that it can be quite, as I mentioned, militant, but, you know, for some people in the past, babies literally died because mothers couldn't lactate, they couldn't afford a wet nurse.
So it's not always by choice that a parent doesn't breastfeed. Some mothers, and it's a real guilt that they feel that they try to breastfeed and it doesn't work out the way that they had hoped to.
Completely.
And that, we really have to understand that. And for them to hear harsh comments on the other side, it's not equal either.
It's not fair.
I do think we need to be open. There is no place for judgment in parenting. Parenting is bloody hard enough as it is without having people make comments and that towards it.
Amen. 20 years experience as a lactation consultant. I almost feel like I could do it myself now. I can't. Where can people find you?
So 20 years experience in nursing, not solely just lactation, just in case everyone wonders. But yes, nursingmama.ie, you can access all my classes, and I do breastfeeding preparation classes. I also have just launched a new online or video on demand course, which can be accessed anywhere in the world. You can dip in, dip out, and you can take it at your own leisure. And the best thing about this is you get extra support through a private Facebook page where I will give you extra added support on your journey along the way. So
nursingmama.ie is where you will find it. Katie Mugan, thank you so much for joining us this morning on World Breastfeeding Week. Now, coming up from these puppies to those puppies. Look at them there. We're going to meet some guide dogs in training next. Talk to you in a minute. God, smiles on our face. If you have space in your home for a new four-legged friend, then maybe you could be the next puppy raiser for Irish guide dogs. We should do a reality TV show. Ireland's next puppy raiser. Next best puppy raiser.
I'm feeling somewhat threatened having another dog on the set. Zita and Laura are here with gorgeous pups, Ozzy and Ren. This is Ozzy. And Ren is over there.
Hello,
She's so
darling.
cute. You're all very welcome. These two especially, though. Zita, thanks so much. Thanks to all of you for joining us. Tell us about, well, I suppose, how do you get into the business of puppy training for...
Well, I saw
Irish
an ad many years ago, I think it was in a newspaper, which we rarely have newspapers, I suppose, nowadays. It's more
online
and stuff like that. And I thought, here we'll go, we'll get involved there, because my son, who was 19 at the time, always wanted a dog.
Yeah.
And he said, you had to wait 19 years for me to get a dog. And now you're telling me you're giving it back.
One. Yeah.
We're getting one, but you're giving it back. We're only going to have it for a year.
Yeah.
But he was delighted anyhow, and he was on board. But I kept saying, you're going to be going off to college now soon.
You won't be around for the walks.
You won't
Take
be
care.
around.
Yeah.
And we said, we'll do it once.
How many?
And now Ozzy is number 12.
Number 12. Like, Laura, were you the same when it came to puppy raising? Because you keep them from a certain amount of time. It's not a long-term commitment.
Yeah, no, you get them from about 8 weeks old.
Yeah.
And you keep them until they're 12, 14 months old. So it's a good year that you have them for. So it's a big commitment.
But what's involved in that year then, Laura?
Yeah, so, well, obviously at the start, you're just concentrating on toilet training, crate training, that sort of stuff. Just getting them comfortable in the house for the first few weeks. And then the whole year is just spent socialising them, even stuff like this, bringing them to shops, getting them used to public transport, making sure they're calm and comfortable, you know, in every sort of social situation. So it's just, they spend the whole year with you, really. Everywhere you go, they come.
How many have you gone through, Laura?
This is number 6.
Number 6, wow.
Yeah.
And did you say one as well?
Said one, yeah.
Wow.
Well, this is the thing, you see.
And every time I give one back, I say, no, that's it.
We've always had that discussion in our house about, because there's also fostering as well, which people do, and then there's the training then, our puppies in training. I think it'll break my heart.
Yeah.
How do you do it, Zita?
Yeah.
How do you? It's handing up after, because it's not a few weeks. You can kind of go, Grant, I'll manage. I will feed the dog, look after it, make sure it's doing its piddles at the back garden or whatever. But a year or longer than that is
the hardest thing in doing puppy walking is giving them back.
Yeah.
It really is. It's very hard. But like my son going off to college, it's your turn now. Go and learn. Go and work. Learn to work and contribute.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of... And I think of the dogs as having them on loan, like our son.
Yeah, our
now
children,
it's time, our children, to go off to college, do
And
the
to do
thing,
your
and that's how I get it.
That's a great way of thinking about it. But I honestly didn't think that this was something that you could apply to do. I assumed that you had to be with Irish Guide Dogs for the Blind for so long, that you had to have loads of training, Laura, to do this.
I never had a dog before I started doing this. Never had dogs. Didn't really want one. It was just that I had been made redundant.
Yeah.
And so I had time, and my daughter at the time, she was only 5, and she had an awful fear of dogs. Awful. And I said to my husband, I'd love to get a lend of a pup for a few weeks or a few months to try and get rid of that fear. Yeah. And he had heard a radio interview looking for puppy raisers, and he said, you know, you can raise this. So that's why I started looking into it. And sure, then we're hooked.
I can't, but that's amazing.
Yeah.
For the dogs, because sorry, but some dogs won't make it. They're not going to be an Irish Guide Dog for the blind because the duds, you know, like myself.
The lovable duds.
But like myself. But Zita, what happens with the dogs that mightn't be suitable for a person who's
say for a guide dog,
a visually impaired person?
They may not. They may work out as an assistance dog for a family that has a child with autism. They could end up maybe as a companion dog for somebody, and they're getting a wonderful dog. And usually it's medically why they might be withdrawn for some medical reason, or maybe they just don't want to work.
Okay.
I love it. I love it. How do people get involved in this if they want to do this, Laura?
Yeah, so they can go on to the Irish Guide Dogs website, guidedogs.ie, and there's a link there, ways you can help, and there's all the information on puppy raising. You sign up for a webinar and you...
Zita and Laura, it's been a pleasure having you here, and I just think this is an amazing thing that you do. Ren and Ozzy, you can do this too as well. Listen, thank you so much for being here. Alan, what's coming up on tomorrow's show?
Well, Muireann, on Friday's show, how to boost your happiness in just 10 minutes every day. We'll see the wackiest costumes ready to wow at Comic-Con and beauty and travel essentials. Join Simon, Elaine and Paul from 7. Have a great day.